Welcome back, Focus Learners. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer, because honestly, we are tackling something that affects literally every single one of us. We're diving deep into the fascinating science of habits. You see, the consensus in behavioral science is crystal clear. If you've ever struggled to stick to your routines, the answer isn't about trying harder, it's about designing smarter. We've got a really fantastic slide deck to go through today that is absolutely going to change how you view your own daily routines. So go ahead, get comfortable, and let's just get right into it. Section 1. The problem with willpower.
Okay, so every single January, millions of incredibly well-intentioned people make these huge resolutions to change their lives, right? They swear they're going to eat better, read way more books, save more money, and they usually rely entirely on sheer brute force willpower to make it happen. But I want you to consider this. Why are gyms practically overflowing with people in January, like to the point where you literally can't even get a treadmill, but then they are completely empty by March? I mean, it's such a universal frustration. We have all been there. We start out with this incredibly high motivation, we push ourselves to the limit, and then eventually we just completely run out of steam and revert right back to our old ways.
Listen, if you have ever experienced that dreaded February slump, I want you to take a deep breath right now and just let go of the guilt. Because the problem isn't you. It's really not. It is not a personal flaw, it's not some lack of character, and it certainly isn't because you're lazy. It is simply your strategy. Relying on willpower as your primary tool for behavior change is, well, it's kind of like trying to chop down a massive tree with a butter knife. It's just totally the wrong tool for the job.
Moving on to Section 2, the neuroscience of habits.
So to actually understand why willpower fails us so consistently, we have to look under the hood at a pretty stark biological contrast. Whenever you use willpower, you're using your prefrontal cortex. Now this is the conscious, logical, decision-making center of your brain. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but it is incredibly easily fatigued. On the flip side, we have the basal ganglia. This is this ancient, basically golf ball-sized structure deep inside your brain, and that is where your habits actually live. It's unconscious, it is totally automatic, and it is highly, highly efficient. Habits always win in the long term because the basal ganglia requires almost zero energy to run.
And that brings us to a really critical concept here, decision fatigue. You see, willpower isn't a personality trait. It is a finite cognitive resource. Think of your prefrontal cortex kind of like the battery on your smartphone. Every single time you make a conscious effort, like resisting a donut in the break room, forcing yourself to work out, or dealing with a super stressful email, you drain that battery. By the end of the day, your willpower is just completely depleted. Habits, on the other hand, well, they don't require any willpower at all because they aren't decisions anymore. They just happen.
Okay, let's dive into this next part. Section 3, inside the habit loop.
So if we want to learn how to hack this system, we can look at an amazing framework popularized by the author Charles Duhigg. Every single habit you have follows this exact three-step structure. First up, there's a cue. That's a trigger that essentially tells your brain to flip into automatic mode. Second, there's the routine, which is the actual behavior itself. And third, the reward. The reward helps your brain figure out, hey, is this particular loop actually worth remembering for next time? Think about brushing your teeth. You definitely don't use willpower for that, right? The cue might be waking up or feeling that weird film on your teeth. The routine is the brushing, and the reward is that crisp, minty, super clean feeling. Boom. It's a perfectly formed mini-narrative right there in your brain.
But here is a truly fascinating wrinkle. It is not actually the reward itself that drives the habit. It's dopamine. That famous feel-good neurotransmitter actually surges at the anticipation of the reward. That right there is the craving. I mean, think about how Starbucks deliberately engineers their entire customer experience. The smell of the roasted beans the second you open the door, the specific sound of that espresso machine, those cues trigger a huge dopamine spike before you even take a single sip of coffee. That craving is what actually sustains the habit loop, even if the eventual reward isn't really all that great.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next big concept, chunking. Once a habit loop is formed and successfully reinforced by all that dopamine, your brain actually chunks the entire sequence together. It locks it in so it can fire completely automatically without any deliberate thought from you. Now, this is an incredible evolutionary advantage for us because it makes us highly efficient. But, and you probably guessed this, it's exactly why bad habits are so notoriously hard to break. Your brain has literally hardwired the sequence.
So, the crucial point is, Section 4, environment over willpower. Because your brain hardwires these behaviors so effectively, trying to fight them with raw willpower is just a losing battle. Instead, we need to use environment design. You are essentially outsourcing your willpower to your physical space. If you want to eat healthier,
Don't rely on being strong-willed when you open up the pantry at 9 p.m. Make the good behavior easier by putting a big bowl of washed fruit right there on the kitchen counter. Make the bad behavior harder by keeping junk food completely out of the house. Out of sight, out of mind. If you want to sleep better, plug your phone charger in another room. Make the default action the good action.
Now, before we look at some specific strategies to build new habits, we absolutely need to bust a massive myth. You have almost certainly seen this number floating around in, self-help books and online articles, 21. The idea that it takes exactly 21 days to form a brand new habit. And hey, it sounds great, it fits perfectly on a neat little calendar, but actually, scratch that, it has absolutely no scientific basis whatsoever.
Here is the actual truth. A really comprehensive 2010 study from University College London found that the real number is much closer to 66. On average, it takes about 66 days for a new behavior to become genuinely automatic. And frankly, that timeline is a huge spectrum. Depending on how complex the habit is and just the individual person, it can range anywhere from 18 to 254 days. So what you really need to take away from this is, be patient with yourself. Give the neuroscience the time it needs to actually work.
Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 5, Strategies for New Habits. All right, so now that we understand the brain chemistry and the real timeline, how do we practically apply all this today? First up is the 2-minute rule. The goal here is basically to shrink the initial hurdle. If your goal is to start reading a book a week, do not sit down and try to force yourself to read 50 pages right off the bat. Your brain is going to resist that massive effort. Instead, commit to reading for literally just 2 minutes, or even just one single page. You are deliberately lowering the activation energy required. Make it so incredibly easy that you simply can't say no, and over time, the habit will take hold organically.
Next up is a super cool concept popularized by the researcher B.J. Fogg. It's called habit stacking. Remember how we said your brain already has thousands of perfectly efficient chunked habits? Well, you can leverage those existing neural pathways by anchoring a new behavior right onto an old one. For example, you could say, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for exactly 1 minute. The coffee is that firmly established cue that automatically triggers the new routine. It is a highly effective piggybacking strategy.
Strategy number 3 is implementation intentions. Vague goals like, oh, I'm going to exercise more this week, they almost always fail because they completely lack a cue. You have to give your brain very specific instructions. Declaring something like, I will go for a run at 7 a.m. in the neighborhood park on Tuesday dramatically increases your actual follow-through. You are preloading the decision, so when 7 a.m. finally rolls around, your poor prefrontal cortex doesn't have to debate what to do. The decision is already made.
Finally, we have keystone habits. Listen, you don't need to change everything in your entire life all at once. That's exhausting. Some habits just naturally have massive, outsized effects. For a lot of people, exercise is a perfect keystone habit. When they start exercising, even just a little bit, they naturally start eating better to fuel those workouts. They end up sleeping way better because they're physically tired. Their focus and productivity at work just naturally increase. Changing just one single, critical keystone habit can organically improve entirely different areas of your life without requiring any extra willpower. And wow, that brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway for this explainer. Change isn't about trying harder, it's about understanding how your brain actually works. We need to stop fighting our biology and start outsmarting it. Use the habit loop, design your environment, and start incredibly small. By doing this, you're literally turning your basal ganglia into your greatest ally. But I want to leave you with this one question to ponder today. Look around your immediate physical space right now. What is one bad habit your environment is currently making perfectly easy for you to do? Really think about it. Anyway, I so hope you found this explainer as fascinating as I did. If you want to keep exploring the amazing science of being human, make sure you subscribe. We've got so much more to learn together. See you next time.